एक मिनट रुक जाओ, रेडी होने दो. चलो ये कर लेते हैं. This could be a great intro.
Hi, I'm Akshay.
Hi, this is Saurabh, and you are listening to the Founder Thesis podcast. We meet some of the most celebrated startup founders in the country.
And we want to learn how to build a unicorn.
I am the guy who will find hacks for everything, right? There is a set formula to crack an exam, but there is probably an easier way to crack the same exam, right? So I'll tell you one of my instances, not from engineering, from B school though, right? So there was this one exam where it was a multiple choice question exam, right? So everybody was, looking at older papers, trying to figure out what are the answers, and it was an extremely complicated economic exam, right? And there was no way I would get my head around it by studying so much, right? And because it was a multiple choice paper, right, I also went through all the old question papers, right? But so the professor has been the same for that subject for a long, long time, right? So I basically went through and saw where are most of the answers. Is it A, B, C, or D? So, and observed a pattern and went and said, I will mark the whole answer paper. There is a high probability of it being between B and C. So I will take a bet on how many B's, how many C's. I won't even mark A and D, right? And actually ended up with a B minus or some grade like that, beating so many of the others who basically sat and crammed, right? So this was one example of, okay, this is not what I do always, but my mind will figure out the easiest, shortest path to achieve anything.
With 26 official languages, there is no doubt that India is a country with extensive diversity. Not just languages, but even dialects within each state differ from city to city. Obviously, the social media in a country like this will have its own formula. And our guest today, Aprameya, took this up as a challenge to create Vokal and Coo, the voice of India in Indian languages. Aprameya Radhakrishnan, a shy kid growing up in a middle-class family, completed his electronics engineering degree from NIT Surathkal and has worked with Infosys, after which he pursued his MBA at IIM Ahmedabad. He is a serial entrepreneur and is best known for his previous venture, Taxi for Shaw. His current venture, Coo, may end up leaving a tremendous mark on the Indian social media ecosystem by empowering millions to use social media in their native language. Here is Aprameya talking about his stint at Jones Lang LaSalle and his ventures after it.
I did a summer internship with Jones Lang LaSalle. So the same company offered me a job for my final placements as well. Accepted that. So there as well, there were a lot of consulting companies, iBank, which were in demand. So I chose the one company which nobody ever knew about. It's a real estate consulting company, and they were hiring for a business development role. So I just thought, I'd want to tread a path that is less known, where I can pave my own path rather than, getting into a known consultancy firm where again, your path, right? So I didn't want to get into another path where everything is written for you, right? And hence chose Jones Lang LaSalle, which was hiring from IIM Ahmedabad for the first time, or IIMs for the first time. So there was a lot more opportunity to, contribute in a big way in a company that has never been exposed to IIM guys before.
Okay. So why did they feel that you would fit into a sales role? I mean, considering that you've not done any sales ever, and why did you want to do a sales role?
So it was a combination of a sales role and setting up a new business. So, they wanted to set up a hotel vertical, and they had the experienced person already. Manish was his name. So he was managing a single project still then, right? He was managing hotels, and they chose him to expand the hotel business within Jones Lang LaSalle. And
so what do you mean by hotel business? Like just define the business. Like
so
what does it mean?
So this vertical was all about project management. So if a real estate developer ties up with Marriott and they want to construct a new hotel in Bangalore, let's say, they would need project management service, right? They would need somebody to consult them to go about building this whole hotel, right? Coordinating between the architect, the labor, contractors, all of that. And they need skilled white collared resources to be able to manage the timelines and budget while executing this project, right? So that vertical was booming. Now all the hotels that we see were constructed in the last decade or so, right? So that was identified as a booming sector, and basically went and met quite a few real estate developers, and understood how the business heads run within the company. So started exposing me to real live businesses, right? I was meeting developers who had started from zero. I also met developers who basically were developers because their whole family was in real estate development, right? So I started getting exposed to all kinds of journeys, right? And started thinking about how it would be if I started my own company with all the examples of people starting from zero and making it big. It was extremely inspiring to know those stories. And because of my joining Jones Lang LaSalle, that was possible. Why did I do a sales role? As I was saying, it was a combination of setting up a new business vertical with Manish, and getting new business, right? So it was business strategy plus executing, getting those projects. Manish, of course, knew how to execute those projects. So that was the kind of role that I was hired in, and it was very successful. Like we got from one hotel project that we were managing, we went to 20 hotel projects in 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you navigate the sales process? Like, what did you learn about doing sales?
Some aspects of my personality helps in sales, which is me being straightforward and honest. I am not there to go and somehow make money off. I'm very honest to whether I've added value to your life or business, right? And when you believe that, it shows when you're interacting with a person, right? So the trust that is required for a person to believe that this service provider will actually think of my interest and deliver whatever he's promising, I think that aspect was very strong, right? So the challenge was identifying who are all constructing hotels, who's the owner, getting an appointment, going and meeting them. But once you meet them, to be able to get your foot in the door, and then convincing them was not a problem, right? It finally came down to, okay, what price are you quoting versus somebody else? But being able to influence even that and saying, what's long term beneficial. This guy is constructing 10 projects, right, in the next 5 years. So it's fine if we don't make money off the first two, right? But we will be able to get a long term relationship, right? So those kind of thought which never existed, I was introducing into the company, right? So I think it was a combination of great relationships, the hustle, the fresh energy that I was bringing into the whole process of getting new clients, and business strategy on what to say to who and how to get what is the overall importance of that project to the company. So I think all of that put together, is what made me successful in that stint.
And the JLL brand would have helped to get you in front of them, like in terms of open the door for the initial meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. While the hard work of contacting the person was done by me, because these were all fresh. Some of them were new developers who just wanted to construct one hotel, right? But the brand of Jones Lang LaSalle definitely helped get the first meet. Yes.
So tell me about Raghu. When did you meet him?
So me and Raghu are batchmates from engineering, and he was also 1 year senior to me in IIM Ahmedabad, in the same dorm. So we've had our common stints at engineering and B school, overlap of 1 year at B school.
But I mean, when you started off Taxi for Sure with him, like, how did you end up spending enough time with him to form a thesis about Taxi for Sure, or how did that idea originate?
Yeah, so I was going through a phase while working at Jones Lang LaSalle. That whole phase was, about, okay, I'm giving 14, 16 hours a day, and I'm trying to innovate and move fast and everything. But a corporate structure will always limit the amount of innovation that you can bring in and the pace at which you can move, right? And also, I didn't see myself, in the business development role for too long, right? I also wanted to be responsible for delivering a promise, right? So I think with all of that, I started thinking about what if I put the 14, 16 hours that I'm putting here into my own business, right? If it does do well, then, it'll be great, right? If it doesn't do well, it's fine. I can always find another job. And I had kind of come to a stage where, I said, let me give myself a couple of years to just give me an opportunity to to start my own company, see whether entrepreneurship is for me, right? And at the same stage, I think Raghu was also quitting his job and was also thinking of starting up, right? We didn't know what to start up, but
Where was he working?
he was working at Feedback Venture. That was also in the infrastructure consulting domain. So both of us used to meet once in a while, and in one of our meetings in Bangalore, so we said, why don't we think of some ideas? Okay, both of us want to start up, yes, but let's think of some ideas. So I was actually discussing ideas with two more of my friends as well, because I was in the zone to start up. So I was like doing discussions with various people, and Raghu was one of my friends who I was discussing with. And in one of the meetings, we said, why don't we do a meta search engine for flight?
Like Ixigo.
Yeah, correct. So we got very excited. We said, okay, let's check it out. Let's do some research and meet back. And we did the research and found that there was Ixigo and quite a few more companies which were doing that, right? So we met again. We were quite disappointed. So both of us weren't thinking of more ideas at that point, and we just said, okay, there's no point doing this whole Ixigo kind of site. So let's think of more ideas, right? So we just said, okay, let's go have a drink, and we went to this pub on Museum Road. It was called Old Tavern. Unfortunately, it's shut now because of COVID, so that no longer exists. But we went there and basically started drinking, and I said, what are the daily problems that we can solve for ourselves, right? And started listing down all our daily problems. And one of the daily problems was getting from one place to another, right? Why was it a problem? Because there were only autos. You had to hail down 10 autos before you got one auto agreeing to take you for double the meter, right? Or you had radio taxis which would take forever to call and book, right? And even after you book, the taxi wasn't for sure, right? So we said, here's a nice space which is a daily problem which we can enter and solve, right? And we'll use technology instead of each user calling one company and seeing whether they get a taxi or not. Let's just give a single click button. So this was pre-mobile app, right? And this was late 2010. We didn't even know mobile apps existed. So we said on a web page, people should be able to click a button, and the nearest cab should get an alert, and they come and pick up this user. And that's basically. So we were extremely drunk when we discussed this. We said, okay, we were very happy that we found a problem, and the next morning also we were very, very excited about it, and then started researching about how to go about solving it, and whether there is a real pain point. We did a number of surveys with our friend. We went and spoke to drivers near the airport, and so it was
At this time, were you aware of Ola, Uber, and all? Like, were they also around?
Not at all. So this, while it seems like Taxi for Sure was just copying Uber from the outside, but when we were doing our research, there was no mention of Uber or Ola in any of the media. Right? We didn't even know they existed. We started off independently as this idea, right? And during the journey, we figured that there were other companies which were trying to get into the cab space, right? Not exactly daily commute. So our whole idea was daily commute, which we discussed, right? There were various players who were trying to do 4-hour, 8-hour packages and stuff like that. And even Uber started off with premium services, right, in the US before they started scaling. So our initial idea was daily commute using the daily commute vehicle.
So you were focused on the affordable segment of this market, basically.
Correct. We basically said, the problem is that people don't get taxi, and hence we named ourselves Taxi for Sure, because it was very, directly saying out what we're solving. And to make sure that there is a Taxi for Sure, you needed the highest amount of supply or cabs, right? And the highest amount of supply or cabs was an Indica back then, right? So we said, let's just aggregate every Indica that's out there and start the service, and that's what we did.
So when you quit your jobs, did you have some some investor interest in this idea and that gave you the confidence to quit, or you decided to just take the plunge and bootstrapped it?
Yeah, so there were inspiring stories of Flipkart and Redbus doing the rounds then. So one is, the logical thing of, okay, they're selling goods online, they're helping book bus tickets online. So cabs has to be solved. So we had made up our minds to solve it anyway, right? Then we were very fortunate to meet Deep Kalra, who was the founder of Make My Trip back, right? And him having met us and given us the encouragement to go ahead and solve, right, in the cab space the way we were thinking, gave us a tremendous boost as well, right? While he couldn't invest in us right away because he also was operating a travel business, so he couldn't. While he wanted to invest, he couldn't because of conflict of interest. But just hearing from a person who had already built an successful online business helped us get more confident. And Deep Kalra was extremely generous to put us in touch with Axel, Tiger, InfoEdge, everybody, right? And we started getting exposed to what investors think, how do they invest in businesses, right? Our first meeting with InfoEdge with Sanjeev Bikhchandani was such a disaster for us. We actually had no answers to any of the questions, right? And if I think of it now, they must have thought we'll never make it, right? So those were the quality of answers that we had given to some of those questions. Learning on the job is very important, and that's what we do now.
What were some of the things that you learned that we should know these answers when we go to a VC? And I'm asking this so that it helps other listeners who are looking to pitch to also get prepared to go and pitch to a VC.
Yeah, so see, 10, 11 years ago, the startup ecosystem wasn't as developed, right? All these terms of, market sizing or, cost of customer acquisition or, various other things, all the terms that we use today as as though everybody knows it, because everybody knows it. Because, if you're going to start up, there are enough articles talking about all of this, right? Giving you an insight into how to go about building these businesses. But back then there was none of this, right? There were stories of how they became big, but the details of how to run this business was never there. I remember in the InfoEdge, meeting, we were asked, what is your cost of customer acquisition, right? And we said 1 rupee. And how did we get that 1 rupee? It was because we were going to earn 30 rupees and this much will go into operations. 1 rupee is what we can spend to make enough money. So hence we will spend 1 rupee. Now, is 1 rupee enough? So we had no clue. I'm telling you, it was the most embarrassing VC pitch ever in my life. So I think, the listeners today will definitely be a lot more educated about whether, how to calculate the market size of your venture. What is the cost of customer acquisition? What is the lifetime value of your customer? Right? All of this, once you've gone after your passion and you found a problem and you found a solution, I think these are all questions to be answered before you really put in all the effort, right? As an entrepreneur, you should be aware, right? Whether this business is going to be $1 billion business, or is it going to be a lifestyle business which will make, a revenue of $10 million or $20 million every year, right? So that awareness is very important.
And when did you actually get like the first funding, and how did that happen? And did it happen like pretty early on, or after like a couple of months, or
Yeah, so it happened pretty organically. So when we first spoke to everybody, right, we just had a PPT and nobody knew what we were talking about. I don't think we were able to communicate it that well. So it was an open area. So everybody said, "You're early. Why don't you guys execute a bit and then let's talk again," right? Then we stopped talking to everybody, and then we put our heads down and started executing, right?
with your own money,
with our own
your
money.
own savings?
Yeah, so we put about 4 plus 4, 8 lakh, and started. And we got one engineer who came from Andhra back then. And it was just 3 of us, along with 2 more call center employees. And 5 of us started, right? So we got to about 20 bookings a day or so.
Oh, so what did you do initially? Like, you built out a website, and then how did you, like, did you actually go out to the roads to sign up the taxis, or how did you get the ball rolling?
Yeah, so we started working on the website, of course. Now going back to it, I think we should have not started off with the website or even waited for the launch of the website. We also had a phone number that we got 60 60 10 10, and we could have just started with that number much earlier, is what I feel. Anyways, so we started with the website, we launched it, we got our number, and then we needed bookings, right? We didn't even know how somebody would call us. We didn't know the concept of SEO, SEM, listing on some services like Just Dial. So all of this we started exploring, right, on how to go about it and get some of these tie-ups in place. Some of the first few things we did, we told some of our friends who are working at Yahoo, Infosys, TCS, and all these places to, see if they could recommend us on their internal website, right? And that's how we got our first unknown customer to book with us. So it was
And
actually,
how did you get the supply?
the supply, yeah. So first we started off trying to talk to Meru and Mega Cabs and all these guys. They just said, boss, we have enough bookings. We don't need more. So with that one statement, I started thinking of who actually needs booking, right? And then figured out that the local guys who are listing on Just Dial need bookings the most, right? So I started calling Just Dial and getting local operator numbers, and would go and meet them. And they were more than happy to tie up and say, okay, I will service your one booking. Even if you give me one booking a day, I will service. So here was the actual supply, which was hungry for business, right? So the guys who are a brand already weren't hungry for business. The guys who had independent individual cabs were hungry for business. So we said, let's double down on this, the people who are hungry for business. That's how we started building our supply. And word of mouth is extremely high amongst drivers. So we got 10, they got their friends got their friends. So it became easier and easier to grow supply as we grew.
Okay. And this was like they received the order through an SMS, or someone called and told them, "Yahan se pick up karo." Because your app and all would have come in later, na?
Yeah, correct. So our backend system started off as an Excel sheet, where we had shared an Excel sheet, and we were basically saying, this customer has to be picked up at 9 a.m. from this address, drop to this address, and then we would have empty fields of driver name, number, etc. Right. The first few bookings, we gave it to some of the guys who tied up with us, but then we started more bookings than what cars we had. Right. So we actually started calling Just Dial, calling some of the operators and just giving them the bookings service, right? So we would call as the customer asking for a cab, just book it based on the information that we had. And then 15 minutes before the booking, we would call up, get the driver number, and send a manual SMS to our customer saying, this is the driver number, this is the driver name. He will reach 15 minutes or 10 minutes before the pickup time, right? And then you used to talk to the driver and guide him to the address as much as we could. So that's how we started off, and then slowly started automating each of these processes one by one.
You told me that you had reached till about 20 orders a day. Then
After 20 orders a day, we were running out of money, and started talking to the very few angel investors and early stage funds that were live back then, and somehow none of them had agreed. And in one of our alumni events, our super senior, his name is Ram Shastri. We met him and heard he's an extremely dynamic entrepreneur, and we went and told him our story, and he got very excited, and he said, I'll put in 5 lakhs, and a couple of my friends will also put in 5 lakh. And he was the first guy to agree to put money into us, right? And while in that process of closing the 15 lakhs from Ram and his friend, we also started meeting other VCs and everybody else. And one such meeting led us to Anand from Axel. So it was pure serendipity. So we had actually gone to pitch to JGI Ventures, the Jain College venture arm, and we were pitching to their investment head, and he liked us, but JGI Ventures wanted a very high percentage of our company, like a 70%, to put 1 crore or something.
Oh, wow.
Right. So we said, okay, that doesn't work. It doesn't make sense to us. So when he actually told us that, if you guys are interested, then I can put you in touch with Anand, because Anand used to rent out his apartment back then, right? So he said, I know Anand from Axel. So whenever he comes to meet me, I'll be happy to put you in touch with. So we said, okay, fine, right? Please keep us in mind. And we kept looking for investors. And one day, suddenly in the afternoon, he called. This person's name was Hema Sheshadri. So he called us and said, Anand is in my office. Why don't you guys come over and pitch to him? He'll be leaving in 20 minutes.
Okay.
JP Nagar to Jain College, we drove like maniacs and reached there in 10 minutes. We got a 10-minute slot to pitch to Anand. So Anand said, went through it patiently, and he basically said, let's set up something in our office next week. And that's how our tryst with Axel started. And the following week, we actually met Anand, Prashant Prakash, and Prayank, right? And it was a 1 hour meeting, and right after that 1 hour, Prashant said, they'd love to put in 1 crore or two into the business and start off, right? I think Axel moved extremely fast, which we are still grateful to, right? So they were one of the first known VCs to have said yes to us, and then post that, all the competitive dynamics started. We heard that Tiger was looking to invest in Ola, and thought the 1-2 crores would be less, so we should raise more money. So Axel put us in touch with Helion. We also got Bloom involved, and basically got in a bunch of investors together and raised $1 million, our first $1 million check.
So, how much time later was this $1 million?
No,
Like within 6 months of the first raise, or?
No, we hadn't raised yet. So instead of Axel putting the 1-2 crores, we said let's do a joint $1 million. So it's the same round, and they put in $1 million. Axel, Helion, and Bloom put in $1 million. It was maybe 3 months after we discussed all of it. The process took that much time. That's why.
How much did you dilute for that stake? Like, what was your ownership after this raise?
I don't know whether I should say it out loud, but it was quite high compared to what it is these days. Yeah.
As in your individual stakes were like in the teens, or better than that?
No,
like
better
after
than
this.
That. Better than that.
I mean, so then you are at a pretty comfortable place in terms of firepower. How did you go about with the scale up? Like, you were at 20 orders a day around that time. So, what was the journey after that?
So we got a target of hitting 500 orders a day within a year or so. And I think we achieved that within 6 months. I think taxi is such a service where word of mouth is very high. If you keep your one customer who came to you happy today, since it is a daily use case, somebody else will talk about taking an auto or a cab at some point in time to that customer, and they will recommend you. It is a very natural recommendation, right? So we saw a very high word of mouth happening from day one for us. And apart from that, we also listed ourselves on Just Dial, Ask Laila, Sulekha, all these places. We also invested some time to get our SEO right. Spent a little bit of money on SEM, on Google search. So we started. While we were doing this, Mayank, who's my present co-founder, he also helped us back then, and he brought in this very interesting concept of being everywhere when a person thinks of a taxi, right? Which means, okay, I'm at the railway station, I'm thinking of a taxi. I'm landing into Bangalore from Delhi, let's say, I'm thinking of a taxi. So we started taking advantage of a lot of trigger points where people will think of taxi or search for a taxi, and that philosophy helped us a lot with our marketing. And of course, we started spending.
As in, you put up like hoardings over there, and you made sure that supply was present there for
No, it
service.
was more tactical than that. As in, if you were landing from Delhi into Bangalore, as soon as you switch on your phone in Bangalore, after you get a welcome message from your phone network, you were getting a message from Taxi for Sure, right? So it was as contextual as that. It wasn't about a banner and hoping that people saw us. Also, early days we did this really nice jingle around our number 60 60 10 10. So that became extremely viral. So every child in Bangalore was singing it. Right. So that also helped us. Like when you think of a taxi, there's only one number that comes to your mind. It really worked well.
So this 500 a day was when you were still only in Bangalore.
Yeah. It was only Bangalore. After the 500, I think we started expanding. Went to Delhi, set up the Delhi office. Came to Chennai, set that up. Then Hyderabad. I think Hyderabad, yes, Hyderabad, and all other cities. Then we got an expansion production head who set up the rest of the city. So it was quite something. Yeah.
So, what was like the peak number of rides a day that you were at?
I think we hit 40,000 rides a day.
Okay. And in how much time? Like from that 500 to 40,000? That
No, so the whole journey of start to finish of Taxi for Show was 3.5 years, right? 40,000 was our peak when we agreed to sell. And June 2011 was when we started. January 2015 is when we sold.
so and how did the headcount grow in this period? Like what headcount had you reached? You
2000.
started with just
Yeah.
5 people. Okay, 2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
We sold
And
when
these
we were
people were in what kind of roles?
So we had an app and a call center to take bookings. So quite a heavy number were in the call center, and the next biggest team was the supply team, which took care of the cabs in the particular cities. We had gone to 48 cities, by the way, from just one city. So we needed a team everywhere. We had some hubs for the smaller towns. We didn't have the call center right there. So yeah, and then the engineering team, and then growth marketing and everything.
Okay. And how did you compare in the rankings between you, Uber, and Ola? Like you were at 40,000. What about Uber and Ola? What would they have been at?
I don't know a confirmed number for Ola and what they were at back then. It was what I was hearing was they were easily above 100,000 rides a day, and Uber was probably like 10,000 or less than 10,000 rides a day back.
Okay, it was early days for Uber. Okay. So then what happened? Why did you eventually sell?
I think a bunch of things came together, right? So, see, while running a business, you have certain things that are in your control, which is which team do I hire? How do I make them work? What is my understanding of the business? How do I want to take it forward, right? Then comes a slightly more your supply, which behaves like it's yours, but it really isn't, doesn't it? It's a beast of its own, but it's close to you. You can still control how the drivers behave and the users behave. Then there are market forces. So market forces are your competition. Now, how your competition behaves and what decisions they take, you have no control over. You can only react to certain things that affect you, right? And one such thing that happened was the 200 million raise from Ola, from SoftBank. So, I think SoftBank, exited Alibaba with their IPO in China. They wanted to invest in growing markets and, saw Ola as an opportunity to invest in the cab market in India. And they raised 200 million when, we had totally raised 20 million or so back. So I think
How many rounds more did you do after the first million?
two more rounds, totally about 20 million. And then because of that raise, we had to respond to that raise, right? One, our business was growing well. We were unit level profitable in Bangalore and Delhi, all other cities moving towards that. So it was a very tight ship that we were running and growing, right? As soon as, Ola raised that much money, we had to change strategy. We had to become more aggressive. We had to forget about unit economics and just push the accelerator on, capturing market. And that is when, our runway, which was easily 15 to 18 months, became less than 4 or 5 months because of the pace at which we had to grow in order to compete with the competition. And
This was your call, or the investors told you to do
no,
this?
it would be our, as in we have to guide the call, right? And the investors did agree, and we started being more aggressive. And once we became more aggressive, we had to raise more money. And when we were raising that money, meeting different people across the world, the Uber rape incident happened in Delhi, right? And with that came headlines that Taxi for Sure, Ola, Uber are banned in India, right? And because of that, a lot of interested investors they wanted to wait it out, right? So there were some investors who were ready to go ahead with it. So we wanted to raise about 80 million or so, 80 to 100 million, and we had a committed 50, 60 million. So we had a choice of raising that and closing that round, right? But we would have had to come back to the market in about 6 months. There was also at the same time an opportunity to sell to Ola or Uber. Uber. Both of them made offers. So because of the uncertainty around whether taxis will be banned, not be banned, and the fact that we're running out of money, and if we raise the 50-60 meant that we would have to come back into the market again to raise in 6 months. We thought it might be a good opportunity, keeping in mind the interests of investors, employees, drivers who work with us, everybody, to actually merge with Ola and make sure that there is success for everybody. And that's basically how we took that decision.
In hindsight, do you think the decision to go aggressive and forget about unit economics would be the same decision you would take now, or
There was no other way. If you didn't change, you would have died anyways, right? So see, some of these decisions are market dynamic. If you're in a hyper competitive space, apart from what you would have wanted to do if you were the only company in the space, you should also think of your market dynamic and what your competition does.
so you would have anyway lost customers and drivers because Ola would have given better incentives or better discounts if you had not gone aggressive yourself?
Yeah, correct. We would have lost all drivers.
Okay. So in 2015, you decided to merge it with Ola. So what next then? Like, did you like suddenly have nothing to do, or did you work at Ola for a while? How did that migration happen?
No, we exited Ola a month after. So we had Arvind Singhal, who was our COO. He took over as the CEO of Taxi for Sure, and he pretty much knew every bit of what we were doing at Taxi for Sure. So it was an easier handover, because it's in the same competitive space. Sometimes it's an easier handover to the buyer, right? And there was nothing much to do after that. So as part of the deal, we said we will exit because there can't be two leadership, right? So that's how it happened. So we exited right 1 month after, and suddenly after being so busy, you have nothing to do.
Okay. But did you walk away with like a significant amount of cash to like reinvest in the next venture or something like that? Or like, what was your situation at that time?
No, so most of our exit happened in cash for us founders. So it wasn't about investing in another company. I think we had strived and struggled really hard for 3.5 years, and we got an exit for that hard work. And we still are shareholders in Ola, and really hope for the success of the company, because we were one of the key players who formed that industry in India, right? The first player in Bangalore, for example. So I think it's important that we recognize that the fact that there are multiple players who always form an industry at a pace. So if there was no competition, you would take it slow, and hence it will take longer to form an industry. But if there is competition, which we were an extremely aggressive competitor to everybody who was out there, I think that's very important to note.
And why did you select Ola over Uber?
I think we were more aligned in terms of model of operating. Ola was had as many cities live. They had a heavy operations team, whereas Uber had a 3-member per city kind of a structure till then, right? And they didn't have a call center. They didn't have cash bookings. You couldn't schedule rides for later. Just the so they were early in India, and they were still learning, and we didn't know whether they would actually move towards what Taxi for Sure is doing, or just keep running on the global model that they had. So if they did choose to run on the global model, then a lot of people would lose their job, and hence we chose to sell to Ola. Plus, I think the probability of the deal was higher with Ola, because buying out the second biggest player in the market would essentially make them undisputed leaders of the market, and hence be able to raise more money at a much higher valuation than they would have with one more competitor in the fray, right? So I think there was more value add that was happening with Ola by buying us than what an Uber would have seen. So we thought that was a better choice.
And did you interact with Bhavesh also? Like, did you work with him for a while?
Only the deal contours, mostly driven by Raghu. I had met Bhavesh a couple of times before, not in the deal aspect of it, but just as discussions around common things that have to be solved for the industry, kind of a thing.
What was the work split between you and Raghu?
So I was looking after mostly external stuff, and Raghu was mostly looking after internal stuff. So what do I mean by that? When we started off, it was mostly divided. Raghu was looking after product, technology, finance, operation. Right? I was looking after users, marketing, supply onboarding, and supply management of the cab. Right? So that's how it was split broadly.
Okay. So, like a new chapter in your life starts now in 2015. So, tell me what you did post that.
I think for about 3-4 months, I didn't even think of anything, and then started thinking about what's the next big wave, right? That is going to come in the internet space. Started making some observations around, what the non-English users were up to on the internet, right? They're getting access to phones, data. So this was pre-Geo era when I was making all these observations. And said it's an eventuality that people will get access to cheaper phones, and data is also going to get cheap. So it's the fundamental reasons why somebody uses the internet is to search for information and knowledge, or connect with other people, or communicate, or express oneself. So this is what we do, no matter what we use. Even with this podcast, I'm communicating, right? And we're using this tool for that. So for the English audience, all of this sorted with some social media, some other platforms, right? But for the non-English speaking audience who won't be comfortable with an English first experience, how do we give these same experiences of expression and searching for knowledge, information, all of those things? That's how I started thinking about it. And Axel and Bloom, my previous investors, of course, liked the whole area under which this would operate. And we started experimenting with some product, right? So we built a voice only WhatsApp. We built a voice Twitter. We built several things based on a thesis of voice first, for local language users, right? Then in that framework, we found a product market fit in voice question answers, right? So most of the new internet users are asking questions on Google using the voice mic button, right? 40% of Google's searches in India are through voice, and most of them are local language questions. Now, when somebody asks a question in voice, they expect an answer back in voice. So that is what we basically found, right? And we said, okay, there is no whether it's text, voice, or whatever format, there are no answers to these questions that are being asked afresh on the internet. So let's build a community which will answer these questions in local language, right? And that product market fit led to Vokal, right? So Vokal has been growing extremely well. We're at around 15 million monthly active users on our search platform, and it's growing well. So you don't have to spend too much. There are organic questions coming in. There's a community on our side which is answering those. All of that gets indexed. So the next time somebody searches anywhere, our answers are popping up right on top.
As in, even a Google search would show your answers.
Correct.
Okay. So this would convert the voice into text so that it is indexed by search engine.
Yeah, that we were doing.
Okay. So you had that voice to text engine for all these local languages.
Yes. So we didn't build it. So this is the only technology that we used outright from the shelf. But all other technology, identifying the tags for a question, whether it's a fact or opinion, all of those things are built by us.
Okay. And when did Vokal start? Like which year? Was it immediately after?
So we did a bunch of experiments for a year, and then after that, Vokal kind of emerged. This was early 2016.
So why did you get interested in a problem which doesn't have much personal connect for you? Like, I mean, the fact that there's not much content which is non-English in the internet doesn't affect you much. No? I mean, you can always consume stuff in in English. So
Correct.
what made you interested in this problem?
So during the journey of Taxi for Sure, some of the most satisfying moments for me was when I'm walking down the street and a taxi driver puts his hand out and waves it and says hi, right? And some taxi drivers would stop and want to have a conversation, and they would thank us for all the effort that we put in to change their life, right? So those were some of the most satisfying moments of Taxi for Sure, where you've really impacted lives and enhanced their lives to another level, right? So when we started Taxi for Sure, did I understand the driver problems as deeply? Maybe not. I was just trying to solve the user side problem, right? Which was more my behavior. But in that journey, you've also solved somebody else's problem, right? And that is highly impactful, right? And I think that is the theme of this, where I said, what's a business that can have extremely high impact on people, on a large number of people? And that's how my interest to solve, the new internet user problem started.
Okay. And what has been how do you monetize this? Like when somebody is asking a question and other people are answering it, this is all like user generated content, right? I mean, none of it is created by your team, the questions or the answers.
No, this is all user generated content. There is no spend on consumption or creation, right? So it's a pure marketplace in that sort. How do you make money? So we've still not started making money. I think there will be opportunities to make money as the platform grows even further. Just like how a Google makes money, right? So there are questions being asked on Google all the time. There are some which you can make money off, and some questions that you can't make money off, right? But you will still answer the questions that you can't make money off, because that's what is giving you the brand of ask anything here, right? And that's what we are also leading to. We're just being very patient about the repository that is being created in voice answer. Once we have enough voice answer repository, I think that is the time to double down on some of the search and asking behavior, and see how we can monetize.
So you would like have display ads or like audio ads, considering that your product is like a
Yeah, so it could be various types of ad. As in, it could be a short. So let's say it's a 1 minute answer. I could add a short 5 second or 10 second clip before the answer starts playing. Or it could be a full answer by a brand above the actual answer, right? It could be live sessions from experts who are answering on the topics of career, education, health, and all of these, right? So there are various thoughts on how to monetize. We still haven't hit that stage.
Okay. And how do you acquire customers? Is it like word of mouth, or do you also spend?
No, we don't spend anything on customer acquisition. So it's largely search, whether it comes from Google. We're in talks with Alexa team to see whether we can answer some of the Hindi and other regional language questions. So what we have done in terms of value add to the internet is built a community which is answering in local languages using voice. Now we've not hit a stage where we're saying we will be the destination to ask, right? Our content is being put onto platforms where the asking is already happening, right? And once we have a big enough repository, then we will see how to invest into the whole owning of asking experience.
Okay. And typically, what are the type of users that you have, and what is the kind of things that people ask? Most frequently asked.
We have a lot.
Like what would be?
We have a lot of fact questions being asked. People generally like another human saying out the answer, even if it is as simple a question as who built the Taj Mahal, or who is the Prime Minister of India, or anything of that. So there are quite a few fact questions. Then in opinion questions, education, career, health, life, love. These are some of the main categories, and these categories are a reflection of what India's mood is. India's mood is to learn, get better, and become a better version of themselves, right? How to earn money, how to get a better career. So that is what is on Indians' minds, and that's quite a bulk of the questions that we get.
Okay. And tell me about Coup, which you have recently launched. So what is the idea there?
Yeah, so while building Vokal, we saw, there are various types of expression that the new users can do. One is asking questions and answering questions, and the mood there is all about Q&A, right, on Vokal. We said, okay, people may want to express express themselves freely, right, without answering a question. How about building a product for that use? And we said, microblogging is a very good way of letting people express themselves in a very quick manner, right? And that's how we started the experiment of Coup. So we launched it in March 2020, and we've already seen good traction on it. Canada. So we're close to 1 million downloads overall. Canada has grown very well. That was our first community. We have some of the most, famous Kannadigas as part of the community already, whether it is the Deputy Chief Minister Ashwath Narayan or cricketers Anil Kumble and Javagal Srinath. It could be Sadhguru, posting content in Kannada. So all of this is happening on the platform right now, right? And it's extremely useful for Kannadigas to connect in a very different manner when you have a social media in their language. I'm a Kannadiga myself, and that's how we started off with Kannada and built the product. And now we're in Hindi, and we've got multiple folks. So Hindi is growing faster than Kannada now. We've got a lot of folks from Bollywood as well joining, right? We've got so we recently won the Atmanirbhar app challenge, right? That has really helped us get noticed, and we're hoping to basically build from there and make sure that for the wider audience of India, we are the microblogging platform.
Okay. So in a way, if Vocal is like a audio Quora, Ku is like a audio Twitter. Is it audio or audio video both?
No, it's text, audio, video. It's open, right? So it is aimed for those who prefer local languages over English. So it does. So we're actually, so Ku is directed towards some of the most intelligent, smart people in India, and who are part of the first 100 million users of India, and who prefer local language over English language.
And so all these celebrities who have joined Ku, like, did you deliberately try and do a campaign to get them to join, or was it all organic?
No, we've reached out to some of them. We've got organic downloads from some of them, but we've never actually done any kind of deal with them, monetary deal with them to get them on board, which a lot of social media platforms in India are doing or have done. But I think the quality of the product and the mood of the product is about thoughts and opinions, and there is a lot of need to be able to communicate oneself in local languages in order to build a strong rapport with the new internet audience, right, which prefers local language over English.
So, I think products are defined as much by what you can't do as by what you can do on it. So, what are the things you can't do on Ku? Like, what are the restrictions you have? Like, is there a character limit or a length limit on the audio or video?
There is a character limit of 400 characters or a 1 minute audio or video. We've also made it compulsory for you to say something. You can't just come and upload a WhatsApp forward and just say I've posted, right? We want you to be speaking your mind on the platform, right? Because we're a thoughts and opinions platform. We're not a entertainment platform, right? So that is another restriction that we've done. Also, we don't show you content unless you follow the people that you like. So that is a very Western product kind of a philosophy where you from day one you are forcing users to tell their preference, so that in the long run each one. So you could come to Ku and follow a lot of politics related people, and you get your politics feed, and I could just follow writers and poets and get a that kind of a right. So for each individual user it is different, and we've basically bucketed everybody into a language based community so that the discussions on a daily basis are around what matters to that community, and not really those are not diluted by what the national news and national sentiment is.
Okay. So, like, audio is mandatory. Like, you cannot just post a text or or an image or a picture or something like that.
Not audio is mandatory. Text, audio, or video. Saying something original is mandatory. So you can put up a picture, but you have to say something about the picture. You can't just put up a picture.
What is the moat for this? Like, if Twitter decides to focus more on vernacular, what would be your moat around Ku?
I think doing a local language first approach has an advantage, right? So for everybody who doesn't understand, so let's say I tell you to download a Spanish or even a Chinese app, and navigate yourself, you'll never feel welcome on that app because you don't understand the language, right? Even if it is a photo first experience, you still need to sign up and navigate, and all the basic stuff you're gonna have to do in the foreign language, right? So you will never feel at home, and hence you will never use that. Plus, being a Kannadiga, I want to see other Kannadiga. First, I don't want to see everybody else in the country. So I think there are these special, things that we've built into the product, which makes you feel more at home when you use Who than anything else, right? And now for that you have to do product tweak, and it depends on whether companies have a global approach to product, whether they localize it, to what extent do you localize, are they equipped for it? So all of that matters, right? So I think to just compete in the realm that we operate in, you'll have to be a lot more nimble than what you are right now.
Okay. So the ban of Chinese apps, how has that affected you?
We're not a alternative to any Chinese app that was there, right? So there was no. So for example, a video app like a TikTok replica is getting a lot of traction, right? Because people want TikTok. It's another story that nobody's retaining on those apps, but it is a replica of TikTok, and hence people searching for TikTok will come here. But in our case, we were anyway saying we want to do microblogging in local language, irrespective of who is there or not there, right? So our product thesis and how we want to build this company hasn't changed. And because we are not a direct replacement to any Chinese app, we've not seen some crazy spike. But because of the Chinese app ban, I think the sentiment around wanting to use Made in India app is very high. So when a user gets to know that, okay, this is a Made in India app versus some other country's app, Koo will definitely have an advantage.
So going forward, like between Vocal and Koo, what do you see as the bigger focus area for you and why?
So is Twitter hotter or Quora?
Yeah, so Twitter is, I think, definitely a bigger organization.
As in, just being part of your daily life happens on Twitter, right? Full stop. So for us, I think the focus right now, because Koo is also an early product, the focus on developing it and bringing it to a certain level is definitely on Koo. Right? Vocal is hitting a 15 million MAU kind of scale, and it is mostly search, and the playbook is ready. We're mostly in Hindi there, we'll went to other languages. So that is something that we will do over a period of time. And because it is so dependent on search, and we don't spend too much money on marketing, it is dependent on external factors as well, right? It is not just, we take advantage of the market by spending and acquiring customers. We are just going to keep growing the community there, and community will keep coming and giving answers, which, people will consume from various ways of asking. So Koo is our focus, and we want Koo to grow into every language that Indians speak. We want to develop all those communities, and hopefully we should become a part of everybody's daily lives in the next 1 year.
Okay. So my last question. So, what is it that is personally driving you these days? Like, is there a question that you're seeking the answer to? Is there some new skill set that you're looking to learn? What is currently driving you?
The drive is to make an impact on people's lives, right? How big an impact can you leave on the society for the better of society? The voice of an Indian who does not know English is not heard on the internet today, right? So can we enable that and create a huge impact on the society is what is driving, and me in particular. So that's what makes me, strive hard every day.
So that was Aprameya Radhakrishna telling us about his ventures, Vokal and Koo. You can find out more about them on www.vokal.in. That's VOKAL.in, and www.kooapp.com. That's KOOAPP.com.
You like the Founder Thesis podcast? Then do check out our other shows on subjects like marketing, technology, career advice, books, and drama. Visit thepodium.in, that is thepodium.in, for a complete list of all our shows.